Thank you for joining us, everyone. We're excited to continue our Executive Leadership webinar series with you today with Executive Leadership Coach Tim Ressmeyer. I'm Mary Vandenplas, Director of Operations and Research here at Burtch Works. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Tim Ressmeyer, founding partner at Ressmeyer Partners. Tim has put his considerable experience as a quantitative executive to use in his coaching services company. He has previously held leadership positions at Starcom Worldwide, IRI, SCSS IBM, and Mintel. Now, Tim shares his insights with executives and companies around the globe and has partnered with Birchworks to extend his considerable expertise to our network. Over to you, Tim.
Hey, thanks so much, Mary. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's great to see so many people engaged and ready to jump into a really important topic today. So today we are going to be talking about how to build on your company's onboarding process to help you get situated in a new role. So we're going to talk about the challenges to successful onboarding from the company's perspective, 6 critical steps for starting in a new position, and we're definitely going to save time at the end for some live Q&A. So let's jump right in. As I examined previously in my talk on onboarding from the employer perspective, often onboarding of new employees, including senior leaders, people at all levels, consists of 2 weeks of awkward meet and greets, delivery of vast amounts of information from the proverbial fire hose, and that thumb twiddling while waiting for the IT guy to finish setting up your computer. If you're lucky, you might get thrown into confusing projects or client meetings you may not be ready for. So starting a new role presents challenges for both the company and the employee. There is a high personal and professional risk for both the company and the employee at this moment in time. For the employee, it's time of anticipation and anxiety. There's rarely complete clarity, and there is inevitable confusion. There are high hopes and fear of failure. This was a big move, and I'm not really sure what I've gotten myself into. For both the leadership team and the new employee, onboarding is too often a missed opportunity. Too much is left to chance. The fragmented process is spread across too many parts of the organization, and there's not enough focus on the individual in play. Too much emphasis is on structure and systems, and there's not enough on strength and success. Regarding onboarding as a two-way street helps increase the likelihood of employee satisfaction, retention, and productivity, resulting in more success for both the individual and the organization. The company should have a plan in place, but you, as the employee, should also want to take control of your own success and not solely rely on your new employer to ramp you up. Just to provide some context to today's talk, here are the 6 steps I outlined for companies looking to successfully onboard talent. So from the company perspective, articulate a company vision and mission to the new employee. Intentionally create a value-driven culture. Manage change effectively. Integrate the personalities coming on board. Create trust at all levels of the organization and with all the employees. And be ready to navigate the highs and lows that are inevitable as there are transitions and new employees are coming on board. So where does your part come into this discussion? First and foremost, you cannot come into a new situation just waiting to be nurtured and drawn into the new role. Many companies do not onboard effectively, and since it's a two-way street, it's in your best interest to step up and maximize this period of time to help ensure your own success. Organizations will use checklists to make sure everything from signing the HR paperwork to getting your ID badge to scheduling training sessions are all in place, and that's great. But if that's where it stops, there's bound to be trouble. Some critical parts of the employee experience can be overlooked or glossed over if the company is solely focused on just checking the boxes. Today we'll learn how to create your own onboarding strategy beyond the company's training and paperwork. Okay, so the first step, Show up on day one with confidence. You've got this. You are hired for a reason. You went through multiple interviews and perhaps presentations and assessments. People pored over your resume and asked you tough questions. And guess what? They hired you. They want you to be successful. Replacing employees is a costly undertaking, and they have spent money to bring you on, and they don't want to have to go through that again. Stand up straight, smile, look them in the eye, and remind yourself that you're there for a reason. In coaching, we call it the imposter syndrome, your gremlin, or your inner critic that makes you start thinking, soon they'll figure out I'm not as good as they thought I was. It's that voice in your head that's always been there and always will be, that's trying to make you stay small, to judge yourself, to keep you quiet, to save embarrassment. Now it's the time to tell that voice to be quiet. You're not going to listen to it. When you start having that self-doubt, remind yourself that they chose you. They want you to achieve your goals as well as theirs. You can move ahead with confidence. Number 2, clarify what success really looks like. You've had lots of conversations about your role, and you have a nice job description and initially caught your attention. Okay, now you have to figure out what it means to crush it in your new role. The dating phase is over. You're done trying to impress each other. Now you have to live together and make it work. Create a pattern right away with your boss of knowing what success looks like in the first 90 days and also the first 6 months and at the end of the year. Tell your boss you want to pretend it's precisely 1 year from your start date. You're sitting in the same place talking about the year gone by. Ask them to tell you what it would feel like if both of you had a great year and what you would have accomplished. Make sure to initiate these early clarifying conversations even if your boss doesn't. It's especially important if you're not in the same location as your boss. If you have multiple accountabilities, be sure to spend time with all of those people who will be benefiting from and evaluating your role or deliverables. A client of mine moved into a senior position at a small and very successful startup that was growing quickly. He knew his boss from a previous company and was excited to be there. He had been let go from his previous role and was still stinging from that. His new boss was an extremely dynamic force and somewhat intimidating to my client, who felt he had to come in and to be perfect and know it all on day one. There was a lot of pressure he put on himself. He was fearful of failing and getting fired again, even though he hadn't done anything wrong. His boss was very laid back when it came to the onboarding process. I encouraged my client to initiate meetings with his boss and very directly start the conversation of what success meant in that role. It included clarity about what his focus should be, what he should be accomplishing by when, what are the metrics of success, and what will success look like in 6 months, a year, and beyond. I'll let you know that this continued to be an ongoing issue due to my client's gremlin being a very loud voice, as well as his boss's continued laid-back approach. My client had to continue to initiate the check-ins with his boss to make sure they were aligned. Within time, the check-ins became more of an opportunity to communicate ideas and direction by my client, and not just asking for guidance. They had successfully created a foundation for a productive working relationship. Number 3, manage the ups and downs of the first several months. Prepare yourself for the cycles of ups and downs over at the start, and even for the first full year. You'll be nervously excited, then overwhelmed. You'll feel like you're catching on, and then wondering why they even hired you. You'll feel like you've hit your stride, and then all of a sudden feel like you're at a low point again. That's okay. It's normal. Be prepared for this roller coaster ride from the start, and don't allow yourself to get sucked into the place of desperation or despair. Check with those around you to validate that you are doing okay, or to find out where you can toughen up. Remember, over time, these lows are never as low as they are at the very start. You are learning and growing all the time. Lean into and recognize your progress. Another client, Jim, was struggling in his new role. It was a newly established satellite office for a company headquartered in another state. Jim was brought in with the intent of him being a leader in the establishment of this new office. He had the skills necessary to do his job, but it was a different industry, and he had a lot to learn from a content standpoint. This rocked his confidence and ability to do his job. At times he was doing really well, but then there were times when he felt like he was failing. To manage the highs and lows, he began to focus on digging into what he really needed to know in this industry. He knew he didn't know it all, so it was okay when he began to ask others to fill in the gaps. He also set regular meetings with his boss to validate where he was on track and where he needed a boost. At his 6-month review, he was highly complimented and received some new perks. And he also learned the blunt feedback about areas he was expected to show even more progress. The highs and lows are normal. Manage your own energy during this time and look for ways to increase your own confidence and impact. Number 4, navigate the new work culture. Surprise! The company isn't as perfect as they led you to believe during the interview process. Every company and team has its own culture, and it's part of your job to start to understand it. Beware of being too judgmental and critical early on. You will discover the way people treat each other when mistakes are made. Or you see team members who seem to be able to get their way with bad behavior. Perhaps there's a style of communication you're not used to. For instance, maybe in the past people were straightforward with their feedback, and now you wonder why they're not addressing things head on. At my first corporate job in Chicago, I showed up every day that first week wearing a tie. On our Friday team meeting, someone said, "Can you tell the new guy to stop wearing the tie? No one else does." Okay, lesson learned about being aware of what the dress culture is of the company. That's minor compared to the other things you're going to encounter. Similarly, through the course of my career, I learned in some places the culture was to have lunch with coworkers in order to develop closer relationships. In other places, that was less of a norm. I learned to be aware of who was within the team is trustworthy or not, because sometimes there's a culture that allows backbiting and throwing people under the bus. Your job at the start is not to judge or criticize the culture, but rather to learn what is going on. You'll be creating your own style within this culture. Now is the time to understand and observe. Be aware, and don't get drawn into cultural behaviors that you know are unprofessional or don't align with your values. Be careful of the people you listen to and tie in with, especially if they're steeped with negativity. No one benefits from that kind of energy. Number 5, learn as you connect. You will inevitably be introduced to many people in the early days and weeks. Use this time to develop relationships and learn from those you meet. Go into these meetings with confidence. Look back at the number 1 point above. You are there for a reason, and you look forward to learning what they do and how you can serve each other moving forward. You don't have to be worried that you don't know everything. After all, you've just started. Focus on the relationship with the person and gain the agreement to reconnect as needed when things start to make more sense in the upcoming weeks and months. The relationships you create in these early days can serve you well in the future. Get out of your own head of fear and trying to impress. People want to connect with you if you are showing that you are authentic and competent. Typically, their success is connected to you in some way. Connecting with trust at the start will go a long way. Effective onboarding is as important for the most senior leaders as well as brand new employees. A client moved into a very, very senior role. It was highly visible and a lot was at stake. Her previous role had some significant problems and she carried some of those scars. Also, there had been some problems created by her predecessor in this new role. One of the things she wanted to be sure to do in her new role is not to be seen as an outsider coming in with all the answers. This had put too much pressure on her in the past and would be perceived poorly by her new team and organization. She spent the first several weeks getting to know her direct reports and peers in formal and informal settings. She asked lots of questions and really listened. She offered her perspective as appropriate, and her focus was on relationships at this point, not dramatic wins. She established trust with within her new organization. She learned a great deal and was able to implement a strategic planning approach going forward that was built on these early conversations with her colleagues. Number 6, play to your strengths. You bring so much to the table, whether it's subject matter expertise, technical knowledge, communication skills, leadership skills, or a host of other strengths. Remind yourself of what you offer. Too often we drift into worrying about what we don't know rather than what we do know. When the uncertainty starts to build, think about what you do offer and see how you can contribute. This does not mean an arrogance of, I know it all, but rather a confidence-building exercise to remind yourself and others that you are there to make a difference. We too often focus on what's wrong and not what's right. You look at weaknesses instead of strengths. You compare yourself to others and beat yourself up when you don't see yourself doing what they are. Stop it. You have a lot to offer. As mentioned earlier, they hired you for a reason. Step up and give what you have to offer, even in those early days. If you're really good with clients, be sure you're raising your hand to help with those engagements. If you're great analytically, be sure you're spending time doing that work and offering to help others. If you're good at managing projects, look for places to step up and show your expertise. Not only will you be making a contribution to the team, you will also be playing to your personal strengths, and that feels good, and that boosts your confidence. These early days in a new job can be exciting and frightening all at the same time. Don't rely on the company to provide the type of onboarding you think they ought to give you. They will have a plan in place, and you have the responsibility to make the most of that. And you should also want to take control of your own success. Follow these 6 steps, and you'll be able to move through the early weeks and months with a feeling of confidence. For leaders on today's call, just want to let you know I did put out a book last summer called The Impact of Confidence. You've heard confidence pop up a bit today. 7 Secrets of Success for the Human Side of Leadership. And it delves more into the areas that improve leadership skills, including building relationships, career advancement, and career transitions. And you can check out an excerpt, and it's available for sale on Amazon. So thank you, and I'll turn it back to you, Mary.
Thanks, Tim. If you're looking to kickstart your next career transition, Ressmeyer Partners has partnered with Michael Evans of the 46 Group to create a specially priced program just for the Birchworks community. This 4 to 6 week program includes 2.5 hours of executive coaching with Tim Ressmeyer to help you build clarity and confidence as you make these important decisions. 4 hours of consulting with Michael Evans to develop your summary brand statement and rigorous review of your resume to help you write the best resume you can. These sessions are held virtually or at sites selected by the coaches. Cost for the Birchworks community is $1,998, payable in 2 installments. And to connect with Tim, you can reach him at the phone number shown on the screen or by emailing info@ressmeyerpartners.com. You can also connect with Tim on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. If you're looking to add to your quantitative or marketing research staff, we'd be happy to speak with you here at Birchworks and do some brainstorming. We offer contingency and retained services from entry-level analysts, data scientists, and researchers, all the way up to chief analytics officers or VP of research searches. Feel free to send us an email if you want to chat, info@birchworks.com. You can also explore new opportunities or post your opportunity on our niche job board, which is targeted towards quantitative roles. We offer several options depending on how many roles you'd like to post. And for more hiring market insights, check out birchworks.com/blog, where you can find information on what motivates quantitative professionals to change jobs, how many teams are hiring this year, and how to attract top talent. You can also follow Birchworks across our social media channels to stay up to date on our latest research. On our YouTube channel, found at youtube.com/Birchworks, you can find Tim's other presentations with topics including the impact of confidence on career success, setting career goals, and making successful career transitions. And now it looks like we do have time for some questions today. So let's jump in, and please feel free to continue sending your questions using the chat box on your screen. To get started, you suggested several times, Tim, that setting up meetings with your boss at the start. We have someone saying they found this very difficult. The boss is really busy, cancels meetings, etc., and doesn't really seem interested. What can I do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So important because that's the reality, is bosses often are busy. So a few things to think out. One is look at how you're asking for the meeting. Are you just making it all about you? If you can shift that a little bit and say, hey, my success helps drive my boss's success. So if you can say, I want to better understand how what I'm doing will contribute to our team's success, or I want to make sure I'm aligned with what you want from me. So think about how you're asking. Be specific in your ask as well. If there's one area you're confused about, I want to know about this specific thing, rather than just, hey, help me out here or whatever, but be specific. And a third thing to think about is understand from other team members. How do they communicate with the boss? How do requests get heard? Does he want to be asked, he or she be asked face-to-face or email or text? Just find out what works for others in order to get that time on your boss's calendar.
All right, thank you. And then the next question is pretty specific to much of our audience here at Birchworks, and that is, are there any unique onboarding challenges for data science or analytics positions versus general business roles?
That's great. Again, it's a lot depends on the role. It's if you're really technically strong in one area, then that's something people will expect of you. And if you've gone through assessments and tests going on, so there could be some very specific things to jump right in and do. So that could be specific to this world. More generally, so much of it applies to across all industries, and a lot of that interpersonal dynamic is having that confidence, developing the relationship with co-workers, understanding the culture of the organization. So there's always a technical expertise, and analysts and data scientists will deal with that, but then there are also the broader, more cultural things to be aware of as well.
Yeah, excellent. Next question. I recently started my new position and thought it was clear what I was supposed to be doing. But suddenly they asked me to do something different too. I'm pretty annoyed, and this wasn't what I was hired to do. What should I do about this?
Yeah, that's really frustrating. First thing is to take a breath. That happens a lot. And they are asking you to do something, and you might think it's beneath you, whatever. Breathe and see if you can reframe it. Why are they asking me to do something that didn't seem like was specified? Why am I judging myself because of that? How can I look at it differently? Maybe think about they're really stuck right now, and they need to get stuff done, and they want to get it done, and they're coming to me to help pitch in. Might be the culture. Even though you had a defined role, is actually everyone steps up, and takes on different tasks as needed. Finally, maybe it's an opportunity for you to get a win to help out because maybe in what you were hired for, you haven't fully ramped up in that way, and whatever they're asking you to do right now might be a way to show impact sooner than in what you expected your role to be. So just a couple of ways, but really just reframe the situation and see if what you can look at from a positive standpoint.
All right. And then the next question for you, from somebody who says they've been in a new role for a few months and knew there would be ups and downs, but the situation that they've been hired into feels completely unmanageable. How do you know when it will get better versus when you should just walk away?
Yeah, That's a tough call, and that's really frustrating to go in with that high hopes and those expectations. I guess the guidance here is to, if you feel like it is getting to that black and white stay or leave situation, is to really say, am I doing everything I can right now to understand, is this the way it's going to be forever? Do I need to talk to my boss or another leader and say, I really don't think this is working? Put it out there. Be direct, still with the intent of trying to figure it out. Because if you just walk away and you haven't pursued all options, then you might have missed something. On the other hand, if it does, it's clear it is unmanageable, staying there and being miserable and not being able to have an impact, then sometimes it is time to walk. So just make sure you're doing everything you can before you make that decision.
All right. And speaking of making an impact, question about if you're brought in to bring change and yet there's a constant desire at your new organization for the status quo, how do you balance confidence with patience and perseverance, pushing for change versus patience and perseverance?
Yeah, that's frustrating when so many organizations say we want change and they come in and it's there are a lot of headwinds. Again, it's sort of a case by case basis. Are there small wins that you can get to help bring about change in small ways, even though you can't do anything dramatic? Also understand people respond to change differently. Even though they say they might want it, there are people or groups who are really resistant to it or don't know how to handle it. So that's when a delicate hand coming in and really looking at all of your constituents, all the people, the stakeholders, look at them all differently and try to understand how do they respond to change. What's in it for them if you do make the change? Because it's not going to affect everyone in the same way, either teams or individuals. So think about what's in it for them, what they're afraid of, and what would the value be if they did realize that change. So if you break it down into the component parts rather than looking at the whole company as being resistant to change, then you can start to get some of those wins.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim. That is all the time we have for questions today. But thank you to everyone for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.